forensics and improving the monitoring so that you have a better and way to look at things in the future.
Okay. On page 14 of this document, it says that the service performed a biological study on the proposed HCP Amendment number 5 and the proposed amendment to the ITP and concluded they would not jeopardize the survival or recovery of the Clippy or Bay Checker spot, which you just said. So when you did the biological study, how much of that study did you rely on previous information, and how much was put into with new information that was gathered over the last couple of years?
Well, it was an analysis of all the available information that we analyzed in order to make that conclusion.
So what the Fish and Wildlife Service does, which is kind of unique in a sense, is when we're issuing a permit to a party for an HCP, we independently, because we're doing the action, do a biological opinion, which is internal to ourselves to make sure that we, basically it's our check and balance. And so usually what we have done is we have different parties and experts within our office reviewing the information. So you'll have one person writing the biological opinion and one person on the habitat conservation planning effort and maybe one person reviewing the NEPA documents. And then we have the regional office and our solicitors and attorneys reviewing the documents to see that they're consistent and appropriate under the law.
Okay. And then on page 12, just trying to get a grip on how we came to this arrangement. So when the Clippy was listed as endangered, that was the trigger for Fish and Wildlife to reassess the area that where Clippy Hill is located.
Well, the applicant proposed the for the development to change the development, but in the original HCP, and this is, I don't have all the history right in front of me, that they had assumed in the original HCP as Clippy, treated it as a listed species. But in the meantime, once it got listed and a project was proposed, we evaluated it. So, so at that point, we looked at it when there was an action occurring. And that's when I think we were contacted.
Okay, so you didn't initiate the parties to come together.
When the 82 permit was issued, the Clippy was not listed as an.
Well, I'm talking about recently, say around like 2004, when.
Well, there was it was basically, as I remember it, as best I can remember, it was basically when the development was proposed, plus there were some other developments and in-holdings that different parties were talking about for additional development on the mountain. And it brought up, the very first thing was how well was the plan functioning and as it currently stood versus any additional development. Then the development came in for the ridge.
Okay, well, I'm sorry if I'm not making myself clear. So the 1989 modified project allowed for the 60 homes to be built in Landmark and the 108 townhouses in Hillcrest. This particular modified project prohibits the units on Hillcrest, or in the Hillcrest neighborhood, but is now allowing 28 additional homes in Landmark. And I was wondering if you could explain how you came about that would be the better project.
They modified.
Well, we actually worked with the developer to reduce the footprint of the area, to put it where there was a viewpoint of a less impact, to bring it so that it wouldn't affect the corridor and reduce the indirect effects,
and stay off the hilltop.
And stay off the hilltop, and basically fund the endowment, in essence, to make the management more as on a whole for the mountain more secure, not just for one little area. So the endowment or the funding can help and benefit the entire mountain.
The entire mountain, okay. All right. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
That's it?
I do have to. Yeah.
Debbie?
Yes.
Go ahead.
A quick question. Why would anybody that consider themselves to be environmentalist and protection so forth would oppose HCP?
You know, I would never want to question or why the motives of others, and you know, and people voiced a concern and caring for the butterfly. As a habitat conservation plan, the construct of the Endangered Species Act and what you are actually implementing under the law isn't that you get to preserve everything and that you get to preserve all endangered species. You noticed a lot of people questioning the words incidental take. That's part of the law. That is what Congress put into the law. It's not something I made up. You know, it is part of the law, and we're here to implement what is the regulations in the law. There are many times where you have projects where local citizens may not want a project or don't like something, and that goes beyond what the Fish and Wildlife Service can do. But as far as this project, as it relates to butterflies and what we think is protective, we stand behind this permit. What you do as the council is way beyond what we're looking at. You look at many things, that traffic and congestion and garbage and things that really are past what we are doing. So a view of an environmentalist has a much broader view. I mean, I always tell people that you have to look at it when we're looking at the endangered in the environment as a whole. It's a big house. And when you're looking at maybe wetlands, it's the door. And when you're looking at the peephole, the Endangered Species Act of what you're trying to protect, it's the peephole. It's a very small aspect necessarily, and sometimes you can't protect all the beautiful things that you care about based on endangered species. And you cannot misuse the Endangered Species Act to achieve that purpose, or we could, and it can affect the Endangered Species Act because maybe all these people like it in the room, but there's many, many people that do not appreciate or care about the act and have over the years, obviously, Congress can modify it. So I don't know if I answered.
No, that's I'm grateful. Another thing is an individual mentioned something about that, make a decision that you're going to be proud of and so forth. Using your report based on would I be proud to make a decision?
I think that as an agency and just, maybe others in this room don't know it, but I don't have a reputation within the state of California or within Fish and Wildlife Service as being weak or kowtowing to anybody as it relates to issues. And that's pretty standard approach. You could probably ask anyone. I think that this is the right thing to do. I would not be here till 10:30 to get back at 8 o'clock in the morning for a mandatory all-day meeting and spend the time to, if I didn't think it was needed. I think that you need to fund and manage the mountain. I think that there needs to be an active management. It's not enough to have tour groups. It's not enough to plant a few viola. There is going to have to be intervention to maintain those species on the site over the time. So I am proud of what we did. I think that we did a remarkable job in the analysis, and I think we pushed the developer to the limit to try and get a good project through. Bruce?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And
Were you the lister for the committee?
yeah, I was the one who, as a result of our law enforcement case, put together the proposed rule, and we took the listing through the system. I, based on 21 years with Fish and Wildlife Service,